Hi and welcome. You're tuned into the Helena Phoenix show here on Wolf Spirit Radio. Thanks for joining me once again. I think this is my fifth show here on Wolf Spirit Radio. So thanks again, JP, for having me here at Wolf Spirit. So there's a lot of changes happening at Wolf Spirit Radio, and JP just has so much class and ease with all the work he does. I never see him stressed, but I can imagine the work he's doing behind the scenes at the radio station couldn't be easy. So thanks, JP, for letting me broadcast here, and hello to everybody that's been listening. Thank you to the emails that have come in welcoming me to the station and giving me some positive feedback. So I'm really happy to be here. But I'm extra happy to present my next guest. And what I love about doing my show is I can have anyone on my show that I want to have and interview them. And surely you know who my next guest is. This is Vinny Eastwood. Vinny, welcome.
Well, thank you for having me.
Thanks for joining me, Vinny. I've had so many different types of guests, and I've heard you around the traps, around the radio, alternative media traps. I'm like, I've got to have him on my show sometime. So, Vinny, for anyone that doesn't know who you are, including myself, don't know your complete background, whatever you want to disclose, how on earth did you get into the world of crazy alternative media? How did you get into all this?
Well, it depends whether or not you're talking about New Zealand-based alternative media or international-based, or just personal introduction into it. Because there's three elements. How I got involved into it personally was a friend in university introduced me to cannabis, Bill Hicks, and the 9/11 was an inside job in the same year. So that was kind of my personal introduction to the actual subject matter. In terms of starting alternative media, I'd been working jobs, and I found out, like a lot of people do, but I figure things out quicker than some people do, at least. That I had been screwed over 3 times in 3 separate occasions by 3 separate employers, one after the other. And so I said, bugger working, I'm going to do alternative media. And so I went out, started going out with a camera, and bought myself a Mac and a camera with the final paycheck that I had. Went out, started filming protests and public meetings. And then the third stage, which is how I came into international media, was a American producer was living in New Zealand, and he was producing the American Freedom Report on American Freedom Radio. And the 2 people who were hosting that show kind of split. So the one who remained wanted to get a new co-host, so they cycled through bunches of co-hosts, and the American producer dropped in my name. And the show was basically one of the lowest ranked shows on the network before I came on it. And after being on 1 week, it was top 3. And so the network owner fired the previous co-host and gave the whole show to me. And that's how I kind of got into the international stage. That's how I got into it personally, and how I got into it in New Zealand. There we go.
Okay, thanks for that. And what about, when you were saying that you're going out and doing some freelance journalism, were you sitting on the fence at that stage with the stuff that you were privy to and you were seeing and waking up to? You were sitting on the fence, or you were already kind of leaning towards a more what the truth of reality really is? I mean, how did you come about that?
I don't really understand the question, but I'll see if I can answer it anyway. I never fit in, and being the 5th of a family of 5, I'm used to not getting listened to. So naturally, believing conspiracy theories was pretty easy for me, because everybody abuses people who talk about conspiracies and nobody listens to them. And I was like, that sounds like me.
Okay, well, there's the answer to my question. You're already kind of awake to this. I don't want to use the word awake, or truth, but yeah, kind of awake to it, or before you were going out doing your freelance journalism, I suppose what I was trying to get at.
Well, I think that's, I'm not 100% sure if my story is very similar to a whole bunch of other people's, and that's why when I interview people on my show, the first thing I ask them is, who are you and what do you do? So I can hear their little X-Men origin story, because everybody's got one. It was something my producer helped me to realize, is that everybody has a story. And if you listen to them all, you gain something that most people will never gain throughout the entirety of their lives, and that's a thing called perspective.
Yeah.
If you can see it from all different angles, you'll be able to understand the equation. If you refuse to look at any of the angles, your possibility of understanding the equation or even a small part of it is greatly reduced.
Well, Vinny, I think that's maybe why I have resonated with you when I have heard you. It's the same vein where I come from with my show. I had a show called Time to Shine, and it really was trying to see everything from so many different trajectories, which kind of brings me to what I wanted to talk about tonight, which prompted me because of your YouTube feeds. Sorry, not YouTube, Facebook. They when you post something, Vinny, your streams go nuts. And today, what happened was you've been posting some stuff on Facebook that's leaning towards, I suppose, the issue of feminism. I don't want to put words in your mouth because I don't want to use the incorrect words, and I definitely don't want to accidentally insult you.
Just remember, I act on the assumptive basis that the people that I'm talking to aren't trying to offend me, and they're not trying to demonize me or attack me. That's the assumption until it becomes very obvious that that's exactly what they're going to do.
Okay, well, that won't be happening. I've got too much respect for you. But let's talk about that. So you posted a few things on Facebook that are driven towards more of a, talking about the equality between men and women, or the lack of, and it's really gotten a huge response. I've got to say, I spent half the morning reading a lot of the stream coming through, and it's the pot's being stirred somehow. And would you like to talk about it? Shall we talk about it? But before we do, this is what I wanted to say about my show, Time to Shine, and what you just said. It is about looking at things from very many different angles, and what I'm seeing on the stream there, of the comment that you made, people hold very strongly to certain opinions, which I'm against that. I'll tell you right now, just so you get to know me a little bit more. I like to look at things at all different angles. I think it's all part of the social engineering, but we can get into that. So what's your thoughts? What's your angle on this whole equality thing between men and women?
Well, first of all, I think that both men who oppose feminism and women that promote it are wrong. Namely because one of them's trying to get equality with men, and the other one's trying to stop them from taking their rights, etc. And I don't think either ideology actually has any relevance. For one principal reason: there is no benefit for men or women fighting each other for anyone other than the elite, which already control our lives. It's called divide and conquer. Now, you can divide people along many, many different lines. You can divide them on race. Racism debate's also a misnomer. I don't see a whole lot of reason for anybody saying anything related to anything to do with race gets chastised and attacked, blah, blah, blah. Now, it means that these subjects are not engaged in by anybody with a rational mind. It means that they're emotion-driven. And if they're emotion-driven, it means that they're fact, basically, if you're emotion full, it means you're fact empty. And that's basically it. If you could try to make men and women equal, you'd give the women a penis and the men a vagina, and we'd all be transsexuals. And you'd also modify the brain to adjust all the men's corpus callosum so that the left and the right brain actually work in a multitask fashion much better in men as it does in women. And you'd also cut out a part of the woman's brain which actually gives her a ability to see in colour and emotions and big pictures and things like that, which men can't do, and you'd cut that out to make them more... See, it starts to get really insane when you actually try to break it down. How could you actually make men and women equal? And I say that the relationship between men and women is very similar to the relationship between the left and the right hemispheres of the brain. There's a connection, and both sides of the brain work all the time. If they're not both working together and there is no connection, what do you call that? You call that brain dead, don't you? So if you try to say that women are completely separate from men and vice versa, what you're doing is you're engaging in a brain dead argument, and you're denying the fact that there is a relationship and there is a connection there that we're supposed to keep strong. And I don't see a spectrum within this debate actually coming into the forefront where it's actually encouraging men and women to get along. I see feminism to be promoted by the establishment, chauvinism to be not even mentioned at all anymore. I've come up with a term called psychological castration, and that's precisely what's happened to men over these many, many years. I think comedian Bill Burr said it best when he says that a woman's ability to nag men is like the erosion effect of the waves. Oh, baby, you know that you're wearing something really ugly. You need to throw it out. Oh, those baseball cards are old and ratty. You need to get rid of them. Oh, you're going to get... See?
Yeah. So I would never, ever treat my husband that way. I've got so much respect for my husband. I knew exactly what I was getting into when I chose to get married. And look, I'm not a feminist, and I'm not a feminist. I'm not any category. I just live my truth, but I always also respect the truth of others. With my husband, whatever he wants, you know, within reason, I totally support. If it's going to make him happy, I completely support. If he wants to keep those old cards, for instance, that you just mentioned, I'd encourage it. If he wants to buy a car and do it up, I'd encourage it. To me, our role with one another is to lift each other up and encourage one another, male or female. And if you choose to get married, I think personally for me, that's the commitment you should really be choosing to make, is to keep your partner elevated and lifted. Again, I don't know what you call that.
Well, it's like turning two different cells into a more complex organism. It's called evolution. Mm-hmm. All right, you go from a single-celled organism to a multi-celled organism because it's more capable of dealing with the stresses of the environment. If my wife is in pain, if her back is hurting from her gardening job, I massage her. If her feet are hurting, I massage those, that kind of thing. If I'm really emotional, she'll come and she'll hug me, right? That kind of thing. You have to attune yourself to the other, and it's a dance. Okay? When one moves, the other has to move with it, otherwise the dance ends.
Yeah. It's like keeping that fire going, you know. It's just a very simple analogy, but it really is. The fire will cease to burn if both partners don't, tend to that fire. But this is, to me, what it's all about. And when I hear all these feminist issues and all the issues that are going on surrounding this, the politics behind it, the journalism behind it, I kind of look at it the way you were mentioning before, you know, kind of looking at it from all different angles. And I came to the conclusion, I'm like, as long as I'm doing what I feel is right in my heart, I really couldn't give a stuff about anything else. Maybe that doesn't make me the best journalist, but I do bring people on my show, have all different kinds of thoughts and opinions. So, Vinny, what about your statements regarding, and I do have an opinion about this because I've got a young daughter, a little 6-month-old, young women who are dressing very sexually provocatively. Let's talk about that.
Okay. Well, first, just before we do, I wanted to read out some of the aspects of the left brain and the right brain, and these are the male and the female kind of generalizations. It's not like you completely define each sex to each category or each side of the brain, because of course there's that crossover. And this is a presentation by Dr. Sam Shays, a really, really brilliant, rather eclectic knowledge doctor. and I'm going to be making a few videos for him soon. So the left brain, traditionally associated with the male, this is testosterone, logic, action, details, facts, words and language, and it has a stronger brain connection to the rest and digest, or parasympathetics. Now, when you hear that, it kind of thinks like, now it suddenly makes a whole lot of sense why there is such a thing as what they call male-dominated industries. Talk radio, for example, armed forces, for example, politics, business, that kind of thing, traditionally male-dominated. And I think this is actually because we have a natural tendency to have those strengths in those aspects of the brains. However, there are traditionally female-dominated industries like psychiatry, psychology, early childhood teaching, nursing, that kind of thing. And these are the right or the female brain aspects. Again, not defining anybody to exactly one category, but in general, this is kind of how it works. There's
okay, so this is biological. This is not nature versus nurture. You're pointing out that this is biological.
Yeah. Well, yeah. So the right or the female brain uses estrogen, feeling, thinking. It's big picture oriented. The imagination rules. Symbols and images have a strong connection there, and also there's stronger brain connections to fight or flight or sympathetics. All right. So just think about that. This is why men usually act without thinking, and why women think without acting. Have you ever heard that old chestnut?
I haven't, but it makes total sense.
Because I've actually seen this like in my relationship with my wife. I'll get really kind of upset about something and then go, right! And I'll go and solve the problem. My wife, however, will think about something and keep thinking about it and overthink it until just to the point where she's created a psychological nuclear bomb inside her own mind, and it's really, really depressing her until I have to actually come up to her and go, baby, no, that's not how we do it. That's not how we do it. Here we go. I'll try and solve this problem, try and solve that. And she won't even accept my help. It's an interesting thing, but like I say, it's a dance. Now, we were talking about sexualization, particularly of young women. Yeah.
Before we get into that subject, can I just close up maybe with what you were saying before? I just want to find out what you just read to me. Is that based on biological facts, what you just read out?
These are the general brain characteristics of the left and the right brain, and the female and the male brain.
And are they hardwired? Would you consider them to be hardwired?
No, absolutely not. There's nothing in the brain that is defined to the left or the right because of the corpus callosum which connects them. It's not possible. Yeah,
because what you just described as well, that whole overthinking thing, I actually trained myself out of that. I literally trained myself out of it. So I'd say that being a female, I'm more inclined to be that way, but I can tap into the divine of the masculine. I've got to say, a lot of women are behaving in the kind of the lower vibration of the masculine, and men as well, kind of behaving like bitches, if you don't mind me saying. But
it's totally true.
Yeah. In fact, I do tend to see sometimes a lot more bitchiness amongst males than my female counterparts. It's all very strange. It's all this big mishmash. I don't think we're ever going to really understand it. We can try and we'll do our best today, but, that whole talking yourself into a problem. I saw my mother do that, and it kind of frightened me and disgusted me, actually. So I thought, when I'm an adult, I'm going to try my best as a woman not to be that way. I have gone through that stage where I have done that, overthought stuff and talked myself into feeling depressed about something because of my thoughts. But I understand too much about holodynamics and the holographic universe and the true nature of reality as much as I can to get that, that's kind of a trick of the mind, and I can steer my mind any way I want.
What you're saying is, like, word for word, what Dr. Sam Shea was actually explaining with slides and presentations in the video I made for him, why men die quick and violent while women die slow and in pain. And it's part of our general abilities. Now, what I see is the difference between men and women is men are very, very strong on some things and very weak on others, and women are very, very strong on some things and weak on others. others. For example, long-term memory. Women have a lot better long-term memory than men do. I'm not sure if that's because they have a wider stronger connection between the left and the right brain of the corpus callosum or not, but I do know that when I'm looking for my keys, I can't find Jack. But when my wife when I ask my wife, she knows exactly where they are. And I interviewed Dr. Victor H. Fisher about this, and he says it's because women have a stronger tendency in their brain makeup to put things into permanent memory, and men have a stronger brain tendency to put things into temporary or short-term. And I think this was because of a survival code earlier on. You needed to be able to remember things that just happened. If you're a man, you've been chased by a tiger, you need to know exactly where you're going and remember it right in that instant. Whereas the women at the time needed to remember what their man's requirements of, what their children's nutritional needs are, etc. Talking about ancient humans in a cave, and this is kind of something I believe that's been developed over time, and it is directly responsible for our survival. However, with the rise of CIA and Rockefeller-funded feminism, and I specify that because there's a difference between feminism and CIA and Rockefeller-funded feminism. Believe me, there is. What they're trying to do is they're trying to say that the things that make men strong actually make us weak, and the things that make women strong actually make them weak. And in so doing, they weaken both sexes, and not only that, they pit us against each other when we're supposed to be working together, because I found that because these different aspects exist within men and women, we are infinitely weaker without one another.
Have you ever seen the series of Animatrix, Vinny?
Yeah. Well, not the series, but I've seen the movie.
The movie, because it's in 8 parts. I don't know if you recall this one scene where a man and woman are holding hands walking into Congress. It's almost like they came up with a solution and they were just turned to stone by Congress. And it was just so symbolic of, it was a man and woman walking in, holding hands, like, we've got the answer. And they would just, turn to stone. And I've been onto it for a very long time, and it's actually been part of my growth as to how to work myself around this smoke and mirrors of what it is to be a woman and what I'm supposed to be, because I'm just as confused as anybody else. But how much do you think, well, you mentioned it already, but how much do you think this is social engineering? Personally, I think they use our weaknesses against us, and that's how they make money from us. That's how they control us. They're using the negative of the feminine, the negative of the male, and that's how the whole show's run.
Positively. Well, the stated goal of the Rockefeller Foundation and the CIA in concerning the rise of feminism, and they only got into it during the late 60s, early 70s. The CIA has admitted that they funded She magazine, which was basically the feminist promoter back in the late 60s, early 70s. And Nicholas Rockefeller of the Rockefeller family, who's a high-powered lawyer and friends with a fellow patriot, but he's no longer with us, Aaron Russo. And he admitted to him that we, the Rockefellers, funded feminism because, number one, it can break up the family and get children into school earlier because there's no mother at home raising the children, as has been the case with nuclear families throughout past history. And number two, we couldn't tax half the population, and now we can. So now, because of feminism, specifically CIA and Rockefeller-funded feminism, the family unit is now broken up. We've got like a 50+% divorce rate, and the children are now indoctrinated by the state, and now men and women don't actually have a choice about whether or not they both have to work. They both have to work. because it doesn't matter whether or not you're complaining about how much men and women get paid and whether there's $1 an hour difference or not. The fact of the matter is, men used to be able to earn enough to support an entire family, pay off a house and a car, and take a big holiday every year with their wife and children. And I say children because they used to be able to have more than one and be able to afford to pay for that. Nowadays, both man and woman have to work all the time and neglect their children, can't pay off a house, can't pay off a car, and can't take holidays. Now, if I were to say to you that that was the stated goal of feminism, that would be a lie. It's the stated goal of the CIA and the Rockefeller Foundation. Thank you!
Yeah, the joke's on us, huh? What about this this issue? I think, to me, this is an issue because my daughter's only 6 months and I got to keep a bit of an eye on how she's going to be brought up, which is going to be by me and my husband, not by the corporation or Disney. But my question is, that's right, it wasn't the question. We're going to talk about it
sexualization of young women.
Yes, and how that is extremely socially engineered and these girls don't even know it. Can we talk about that a little bit?
Yeah. Well, I mean, if you take a look, like way back, say 100 years ago, or even well before that, back before feminism existed, back before women got the vote, what were women to men? And I have a look at some of these writings of these old school kind of people, and it's like women were kind of treated as if they were made of glass. They were seen as fragile and something to be valued, something to be protected, and something to be highly sought after for their beauty and their softness, something which men were not accustomed to being in such harsh times.
That sounds nice to me. We used to be a sacred cow. Continue.
To a degree, I mean, but that's not to say that there wasn't, spousal abuse, even though spousal abuse was always looked down on throughout history. That thing about the quote, the rule of thumb. There was a myth started up that was a law that you could beat your wife with a stick no wider than your thumb, and that's turned out to not be true. Again, CIA and Rockefeller funded propaganda. Now, what's happened nowadays is that women have to be independent. It's not you can be independent, it's you have to be independent. And women are kind of like, you've got to fend for yourself. And it's basically, you've taken away everything that men valued about women and instilled in women what women are supposed to value in men. Right? And so no wonder people are now confused as to what the gender roles are anymore, because it's been deliberately muddied, all right? We've muddied the waters here so that now a man doesn't know what it's like to be a real man, and a woman doesn't know what it's like to be a real woman. Mm-hmm. And in so doing, if you can get people to stop being able to self-identify, to know who they are and to know what you are, then it's much easier to control you, because there'll be plenty of people who will pick up the mantle and go, hey, boy, do I have the solution for you. Yeah. It's called man-hating militant feminism. Yes! Yeah.
And I tell you, I had a close-up view of what that kind of militant feminism is all about when I was in hospital giving birth to my baby 6 months ago, and I was totally disgusted. The worst part about it was you think feminism and sisterhood go in the same sentence, and they absolutely do not. Feminism is actually that kind of Rockefeller feminism you're talking about is actually rampant through our maternity hospitals. I'd be going to it's the first time I've had a child, so breastfeeding, the nurses decide that they are in control of your breastfeeding. I had a nurse just barge into my room and literally grab my boob and forcefully direct me out how I am to breastfeed my child. And there was this crowding of how you're supposed to be as a mother. It was just women at their worst. And I was privy to that, and I was pretty disgusted by it. But anyway, I could get into that, but I won't. It's along the story.
Well, there's what's her name? Skara Sard or something. There's this really, really hardcore feminist that's out now saying that women are being objectified. And Sarkeesian, that's her name. And I actually posted a meme about Miss Sarkeesian on my thing, and I actually had women commenting and calling her a word that rhymes with hunt. And you know that you've succeeded as a feminist when other women call you something that rhymes with hunt. I'm sorry.
Well, that's true. But I'm wondering, can you give me a little, maybe some subtext of what she has said?
Well, what she said is a number of things. Well, basically, she's been going, just recently, she's been doing this feminist thing for a long time. A very pretty girl, and she wears hoop earrings that are like about half the size of her head. You could, a midget could do hula hoop with them, I guess. But what she's been saying is that women are being objectified and subjugated in digital media. Okay, so for example, if there's a World of Warcraft character that has nice breasts and a tight bum and a flat stomach, that's objectifying women and is offensive to them and driving them away from it. Okay? Because it's turning a woman into an object. Objects get acted upon, whereas objecticators act upon them. You see what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. Now, does that sound insane to you? Because it sounds insane to me. And it sounds really insane to a whole lot of people. And my argument with this is, not only is this actually kind of a bit of a BS, and I think it's just basically part of an agenda to make men and women fight one another so that our rulers have less resistance from both sexes as a whole as they plot to inevitably enslave and kill us all. I mean, that's how I think it's going. I don't know if Miss Sarkeesian is funded by the CIA. I'd like to find out. And I'm suspicious, but ultimately in today's society, you can't blame people for being wrong and thinking that they're right, because it hasn't been, there's been a long time since the trivium and quadrivium have been taught in education systems. Now, these are the abilities to discern fact from fiction. And I learned this in sixth form journalism when I was in high school, that the first thing that you do is you ask the set of questions: who, what, when, where, why, and how. Mm-hmm. Right? Mm-hmm. And in that order. And if you can't do that, then you don't have the ability to discern facts from fiction. And if you cannot discern facts from fiction, to report on something anyway without doing so as a journalistic responsibility dictates that you should, you are going to lead people astray, and you are going to basically cause harm to society, whether that be harm to the intellectual capacity of society or the social fabric that binds us.
Isn't that what mainstream media have been doing for some decades now?
I rest my case. and of course, how many times have you heard about men's rights being talked about in mainstream media?
Well, I don't listen to mainstream media anymore, but I guess maybe it's not really spoken about much because I don't really know what the issues are, political issues, when it comes to male and female rights at this minute. Okay. I don't know.
Now, do you remember the chick from Harry Potter and the girl from Harry Potter? What's her? I'm not sure if you've seen any of the Harry Potter films. Hermione Granger or whatever her real name is. Anyway, Miss Granger gave a presentation to the UN to her fellow witches and wizards.
Oh yes, I have seen that. I have seen that presentation.
And in it, she mentions men's issues, and incidentally, judging by what she said, and Stefan Molyneux did a great breakdown of this, she had no idea what men's issues are. And had she taken 10 seconds to ask men what our issues are, or Google it,
Vinny,
she would have found out.
You might be one of the few men that I could ask you, Vinny, what are men's issues? And I'll probably get an answer.
The thing is, I'm not a men's rights advocate, but I have interviewed a number of people who've gone through the family court system, and men in particular. Here's the number one men's issue: parental rights. Okay, if I get a woman pregnant, she gets, and I want the child, she can decide to terminate it anyway. If I get a woman pregnant and she wants the child and I don't, she can have the child anyway. Where are the parental rights for men? They don't exist. There's no ifs, buts, or maybes about that. It's a woman's body, woman's decision, and basically, according to the law, men are sperm donors and nothing more. We don't have any parental rights. We're not fathers. We're not part of the family. That's basically how we get treated under the law. If you go to any child protection service centre or family court, for example, in New Zealand, women get unlimited counselling on the taxpayer's dollar. Men get 6 sessions. So if you're not over having your kids taken off you at the end of 6 one-hour counselling sessions on the taxpayer, you're on your own.
Why are the women getting counselling sessions? Are we talking about domestic abuse here, or?
No, these are for people who've gone through divorce and are going through family court custody battles. All right, so there's just about the fight between men and women trying to have custody of their children.
Oh, okay. Well, should be joint parenting should be entered with a full heart on both parties, but that's just my opinion.
Well, ideally, in an ideal world, but however, sometimes it doesn't work like that because sometimes you wind up getting into a relationship with somebody who's actually a psychopath. Mm-hmm. Who will lie and cheat and steal. Mm-hmm. And in the family court, you don't need evidence. So basically the liar, the cheat and the stealer wins, and the person with the evidence loses. And I've heard this time and time again. I've seen good dads have their beautiful kids taken off them, and they can't see them again unless it's under supervised access with some person who they don't know from the family court or something like that looking over them, and each time they hug their child, that person asks why.
That would be awful. Yeah, but I've got to say, we're both, when I say both men and women are really very much experiencing this dark side. You know, in Australia, I was shocked to hear this figure. In Australia, 1 to 2 women are killed in domestic violence situations a week. We've only got 23 million people in this country. So it is difficult for both sides. We got a deep social problem, which is not it's directed at the both of us. So that's very sad. And what I just mentioned is very sad. But
I heard another interesting statistic that came out of the United States, that the average mother will hit her children on average 200,000 times a year.
Get out of town.
Yeah, something ridiculous like that.
200,000.
Slight smacks or anything like that. It all counts, and it's just like absolutely insane how violent women are today versus how they used to be. And I think this might actually be a product of the increasing masculinity that's actually coming into men. And we all have reactions to the things that we're eating. You know, there's estrogen mimickers and the plastics that are encasing all our food and so on and so forth. And I don't know if anybody wants to look around and think about spousal abuse, but me and my wife have had a fight one time. One time I bit her, but she's hit me hundreds of times in our relationship. It is socially acceptable for men to slap women. Sorry, the opposite way around, for women to hit men, slap us, and things like that. But the second a man even defends himself or lashes out in any way, shape or form, you're a demon, basically.
Oh, you've got a point.
Yeah, see? And you know what I'm saying, because you're a woman. You know that all women actually are starting to have this almost, it's like infallibility. Right? If you have infallibility, you have to be a god. And women aren't a god, and yet they've got infallibility endowed on them by the law. You can go and you can smack your husband up as hard as you can, and if he fights back, who goes to jail? No questions asked.
Yeah,
is it the woman that started it?
Yeah. It's these issues, there's definitely domestic violence that comes from women as well. That's for absolute sure. I was physically abused, not sexually, but very badly physically abused by my older brother, and threatened and all sorts of stuff from my older brother. So, I didn't grow up hating men because of it. I grew up understanding a whole lot of stuff, really understanding probably also because I'm compassionate and empathetic, I understand other people's positions, where they are and when they stand. It is very complicated, but you're right. That's exactly where it is a double standard. I heard a comedian who was actually extremely derogatory towards women. I don't know his name. Really derogatory with his jokes and stuff, which people go see him for that. And he was interviewed and challenged by a woman, kind of, you're joking about rape, you're making fun of women and, etc. And he answered, look, if you want to be equal, I'm including you. As soon as I don't include you in these kinds of jokes, you are no longer equal. What do you want? Which one is it? And he made a really valid point. Now, you're being excluded. Which one? You can't have both.
Yeah.
And I get that.
Yeah, comedian Bill Burr made a really good statement as well. He said, the reason why women get paid less than men is because in the unlikely event that some disaster happens, you will be and we're on the Titanic together and we're going down. You and the children get off the ship first, okay? You're basically paying an insurance policy, okay? If the house is on fire, and it's women and children first, I have to stand there with flames on my back as if I'm not flammable and go, come on, hurry up, get out so I can survive.
Yeah.
You see?
I see what you mean, but that's the old days. I don't think it's like that anymore. I seriously see it's really every man for himself, every man and woman for themselves.
Personally, I don't see that. I mean, I see women as something that I have to protect, I have to take care of, and provide for. Not as and for good reason, because they protect me, they help me, they have actually got skills, talents, and abilities that are beyond me. And I think that if you're going to get along with somebody who's better than you in some way, you need to treat them as something a little bit above yourself. But the reverse is not true. If you want equality, you can't treat other people as being beneath you.
Yeah, I
kind of like how the politicians say, sacrifices have to be made, and they ain't talking about self-sacrifice.
And they're not talking about themselves either. Okay, so back to the issue about the sexualization of girls. Now, I want to say something before we get into that, because you spoke about that woman that was saying that girls are being objectified, sexually objectified. Well, we have been ever since you could start getting visual media from TV decades ago. So this
I'd say so, yeah.
No surprise, and it's inevitable that we've got such a thing as internet now, that the volume's going to get turned right up on that. Oh, I'm sorry, darling. I'm sorry. You could probably hear baby now. Okay, so it's okay for us, we're adults and we can have discernment. But if you're a 12-year-old, 13-year-old girl, and I'll speak from my perspective, and you're walking into a service station and all you see is boobs and ass everywhere, we're walking in a service station, you're 12 or 13 years old, and let's just say you haven't had the best upbringing and you were beaten up by your brother growing up, which is what happened to me. I became extremely obsessed with my looks. I was a personal trainer. I did some modelling, but I was very excessive with the way I looked. It was probably a mental illness, if you want to use that term. I'm sorry about this. We're going to come to a break shortly. I'll be able to settle baby, but I don't know if you can hear her. But I can. I was bulimic for about 12 years, incredibly obsessed with the way I looked, because I felt that was the only way I would be valued as a woman. That was part of my social engineering. That's what I believed to be true because of all the messages I was getting. But that was me. I take full responsibility for that. Oh, darling.
If you want to just mute your mic, and I want to actually kind of ramp on this for a second, because I've got deep issues around sexualization. I mean, I'm a guy with a very, very high libido. My entire family is, both the men and women. We're all just really, really randy a lot of the time, and there's just no end to it. And it makes our partners sometimes uncomfortable, but they basically lie back and take it. And I also wanted to think about early sexualization, and this is when it gets into really, really dark territory. So if you have a weak stomach, probably tune out right about now, because I'm going to be talking about probably the darkest topic in all of alternative media, and that is child trafficking, child kidnapping, child prostitution, that kind of thing. You may not realize this, but it is actually one of the most profitable black market industries in the world. And the agenda I see being put out in front of us, and I've talked to a lot of Christians about this, as well as a number of people who investigate Child Protective Services and the Child, Youth and Family New Zealand here. And they've unearthed some really, really shocking things. For example, a high percentage of the people who work in Child Protective Services here in New Zealand are having wet dreams about the children that they take care of. And about 10% of them are pedophiles. And we have a recording of a manager at one of these offices actually saying this. I'm not kidding. They have childcare workers who get paid $5,000 per child. The child kidnappers, as I like to call them, or child, youth and family protection officers who are actually in charge of taking children off of their parents and things like that out of quote-unquote abusive relationships, have a quota. How many Pacific Islander children, how many Asian children, how many Pākehā children, white, that means for the foreigners who don't know what Pākehā means, and also how many black children, so on and so forth. There's actually quotas of how many children they need to kidnap, and they pay them a fee in order to do so. Now, my gut feeling on this, based upon the amount of evidence, and by the way, I had somebody come into my house earlier this year who didn't stop talking for 6 hours while she was here. And she was married into the family that actually write the child abuse legislation here in New Zealand. All right, and she didn't stop talking about what had been happening to her, her daughter, her family, and how they tried to lock her in a mental institution, all of this. This was so traumatic for me that I really physically wasn't able to work for 2 months. Okay, like it's my job to listen to people's pain and trauma and try to make jokes out of it and to help them. And this wasn't possible because when you talk about this topic, it's not funny. When it happens to you, even less so.
Who was this woman, Vinny? Who was this woman?
She's got a pseudonym, Karen Rose. She's on Facebook as Atlantis Rose. And yeah, it was really traumatic for me just listening to it, and that's why I give people warning before I start talking about this topic, because it is well known that the people who research into this field get post-traumatic stress disorder a lot of the time, because you can't look into the darkness without having some of that darkness follow you back out again. You can't do it. And, don't do it unless you're prepared, because you get what you pay for. Now, the agenda overall, I think, is to create a more pedophile-friendly world. This means you need to hypersexualize children from a young age. Like my niece, for example, my niece-in-law is now saying, she's only 6, and she's coming back from school and refusing to eat because the other kids are calling her too fat. And she looks skinny as a rake to us.
Oh dear.
All right, this is what's happening, and I presume this is quite resonates really much with you, Helena, because you actually had an eating disorder based on this, and it just seems to me that if we don't stop the hypersexualization of children from those early ages, if we don't help to basically shield them from sex until they're actually of age, before they're capable of understanding it, we are creating a ripe garden of fruit for the incredibly corrupt and powerful and dangerous pedophile scum that exist within our society. Don't ever believe for a moment that every judge, lawyer, doctor, nurse, police officer, etc. is above pedophilia. Okay, there was a case in the UK, the Holly Gregg case. Many people have heard of it, Greig. If you Google Holly Gregg. She was 14 years old. She had Down syndrome, and what happened was she was getting taken and being hired out to by the night to the pedophiles in her local town. She was being raped by the chief of police, head doctors and nurses and lawyers and justice officials and things like that. The more power you have in a society, the more authority you have in a society, and to my mind, the more you can get away with, because people would never suspect you. And I want to wake people out of that, because children are being raped. Even right now, while we speak, I can guarantee you that there are thousands of children worldwide that have somebody's hands on them that they don't want there. Do you understand? You understand how traumatizing that is? You understand how horrific that is? And this is part of the whole spectrum of difficulty and trauma that we all must face if we're actually going to solve it. And I think that if we're going to talk about feminism, if we're going to be talking about chauvinism, if we're going to be talking about racism or any issue whatsoever, I can guarantee you no woman has ever suffered at the hands of a chauvinist like a child has suffered at the hands of a pedophile. Okay? The scars are deeper and darker, and they're far harder to talk about, and there is no platform in the mainstream media world that will openly talk about this kind of thing that I will. Why? Because the pedophiles are invested in it. This is the epidemic that I think is actually at the heart of any sexual or race relations issue. If you cannot get this parasite out of society, no other problem has any relevance, in my opinion. Not anywhere near as much relevance, should I say.
I tell you what, Vinny, we'll have a break now, and we'll come back and continue on this subject. I'm just going to change, baby. I'll be back. Welcome back. I'm Helena Phoenix, and you've been listening to the Helena Phoenix Show here on Wolf Spirit Radio with my guest, Vinny Eastwood. Before we continue with such a sensitive topic, I'd just like to remind everyone that Wolf Spirit Radio is listener supported, and that's the way we roll. So if you'd like to go check out Wolf Spirit Radio at wolfspiritradio.com, and you can check out archives from previous shows. We've got all kinds of hosts at Wolf Spirit Radio. We do tend to deal with issues of PSD, post-traumatic stress, and we really are solutions orientated as much as we can be. We're just all doing our little bit, so I'm very grateful to be here. So I'd like to welcome back Vinny, and we're talking about some very sensitive topics that you're very open about, and I congratulate you for doing that. I find it obviously very uncomfortable to discuss. It's just such a huge problem. My thing is, where the hell are the parents in all this? So all these irresponsible people having children. But I'd like you to continue with where you were going before the break.
Well, I've always shied away from blaming the parents for their children being kidnapped by pedophiles. I don't think that's fair. And I don't do cut and dry, except when it comes to marijuana. And the element here that I kind of wanted to just really stress to people is that this is a very, very big problem, and it is not something that people want to talk about. And I'd actually encourage people not to just go on and on about it, because it really puts people off, and it makes them even less likely to want to hear about it at all. So it takes statistically 7 different people, usually people you don't know, to say to you something that is contrary to your beliefs for you to actually want to challenge and abandon those beliefs. And the central belief here, I think, is central to all belief structures when it comes to human freedom, and that's distrust of authority. All right, if people have a trust of authority and they believe there's no such thing as conspiracy, no such thing as backroom deals, no such thing as scumbaggery, then conspiracy scumbaggery and deception will exist and grow until such a time as people are unwilling to tolerate it anymore.
I think a lot of us do suffer from cognitive dissonance when it comes to these kinds of issues.
It's true, and so you should, and it's a natural brain reaction because your brain actually reacts to protect itself from things that it's uncomfortable with, and that's for a survival mechanism, because when you're being chased by a tiger, it does no good to wonder about why Daddy hit me and crumble down on the floor in a pile of tears and get eaten by the tiger. In those traumatic situations, all of your emotions and everything click off and you go straight into fight or flight response. I think this is part of the central pillar behind cognitive dissonance, which is actually trying to protect us, because the body prioritizes its own survival over your comfort. And it's a very intelligent move on the body's part. But that doesn't mean that we don't have the intellectual capacity to bypass the body's natural reactions and to grow and evolve as a result.
Well, with the issue you were talking about earlier, my husband and I actually came up with an invention. Now, I ran this invention past a few people and they said, oh, don't tell anybody. But I'm going to disclose the invention because we can't figure out a way to make one. So if anyone can think of one, it's all yours. And Vinny, it's a chastity belt for children.
A children-y belt?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I know what chastity, actually the true meaning of chastity means, so maybe chastity belt isn't the correct term for it. But you see where I'm going, right?
Yeah,
something that's tamper-proof from predators.
Yeah. Well, sure. However, it's more like, how exactly do you protect yourself against predators? Let's talk about the function of the eye and use the tiger in the jungle analogy. The eye reacts to changes in light density, so that if you see an orange flash out of the corner of your eye, you will instantly look at it. You can't not look at it. Now, people have to train themselves to realize what a predator in modern society, i.e. pedophiles, look like and sound like, and what kind of positions that they have, so that when you are in those situations where your child might have an encounter with one of these predators, you need to be able to, just like that, be able to identify them very, very quickly, or at least the warning signs.
Oh, well, Vinny, let's talk about those. Sorry to interrupt you, but you saying that they can be identifiable. There are warning signs. Can we talk about that?
Now, I'm not 100% sure exactly what those warning signs are, but let's think about this. If you were sexually abused and you told somebody about it, and then that person said, oh, no, it can't be Uncle Rick, he'd never do something like that, why would a child go up to you and say, this person put his hand on my leg, if it never happened? They don't do it.
Okay, I understand that part, but what about the identifying them before? I'm thinking, are there warning signs? Because basically it could be anybody. We know that, Vinny. It could be anyone.
I'm not sure if it could be anyone, but psychopathic tendencies seem to be a dead giveaway from these kind of characters as well. So this is how they operate. Okay, they want money, power, and sex. Those are their three desires. They don't really desire much else. And in order to accomplish that goal, to fulfill their desires, they are willing to lie, intimidate, cheat, steal, and they do so shamelessly without guilt. So if you've got people who make extraordinary claims and they don't back up their claims, and if you ask them for evidence, they kind of insult you or attack you or something like that.
I know people like that.
Yeah.
You do too, don't you, Vinny?
No. Not anymore. Because I noticed those warning signs, the psychopathic red flags go up, and basically psychopaths, I treat them like a virus. How do you kill a virus? First, quarantine them, and you prevent the virus from spreading, and then secondly, you need to kill the virus. Now, psychopaths are a parasite, and they have I think it was something like a mind parasite, and the parasite lives off fear. and subjugation, pain, suffering, that kind of thing. They induce this in others. When a male psychopath marries a female, he'll try and subjugate her and that kind of thing, and the reverse is true as well. However, in order to kill the virus in this sense of the word, quarantining actually in and of itself destroys the organism's ability to feed. If you put a psychopath on a desert island and there's nobody around to subjugate and nobody around to make afraid or anything like that, and they've got all the water and food that they could ever need and the shelter and whatnot, they will die. And that's basically how this needs to be working, is that we need to be able to identify the psychopathic tendencies in other people and stop putting ourselves in the firing line, more or less. And the same goes for protecting your children, I would think.
Okay, but do you think sexual predators might not actually display, though, can also not have those qualities? They can be members of society.
Well, the thing is, psychopaths don't have creativity and they don't have conscience. Now, can you name me somebody with a conscience that can knowingly rape children? Can't do it, can you? Right.
Well, what about a nurse that works within the system that is abusing children behind closed doors? That doesn't display. Personally, I don't think it's. I think what you describe psychopathic, that's a really good, obvious red flag, but I think there'd be things that aren't so obvious and a little more subtle.
Well, sure, and even psychopaths are very difficult to identify. There's a great film called I Am Fish Head. It's based on the Chinese saying, a fish rots from the head, meaning if you see corruption or scumbaggery or something like that, look at the top echelons of your society, and that's probably where the rot will be from. And it seems to me that because these organisms create, and I use the organism word operatively because, in my opinion, they're not entirely human. They may look human, but by the very definition of the word, of the things that make us human, they're not. And this doesn't mean that they don't have human rights and that we should go off on like some kind of a Spanish Inquisition to kill and maim them or anything. No. Because it's also an infectious disease. If you're in prolonged situations and contact with a psychopath, you can actually become one of them. And that's what people who've had their family members come back from cults, for example, will say, is that this is not my son, this is not my daughter. Like they actually are capable of stealing what it is that makes you human and copying an imprint of their organism onto you. And it's sort of like the puppet masters or something like that, where they're capable of taking control of your mind, and that's why they're so dangerous. Being
bitten by a vampire, metaphorically speaking. Ending up with the same affliction.
Yeah, that's basically it. And I'm not sure if zombies come into this either. Once you're bitten, you turn into the undead, not human. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think this actually kind of comes back to my central philosophy, is that there's only actually one aspect of research and humanity that you really need to look into, and it actually opens up it lifts the veil of all other instances, and that is the advent of scumbaggery, the actions, the motives and portents of a scumbag. If you can see a nurse or something like that acting in this way, and she's being a bit of a scumbag, or he, for that matter, we've of course got male nurses, then yeah, if you eliminate the scumbaggery from institutions, and they usually tend to climb quite high in institutions, because if you or I were going to a corporate power ladder structure, and we were competing for the same job, let's say I was a psychopath and you weren't, and you were actually better at your job than I was. What I would do is I would start spreading rumours about you in the office place to undermine you and to isolate you from any kind of help or support network.
Been there, done that.
And then I would get the job because you don't seem to be the best candidate anymore. And so, hey presto, without earning it, without having what it takes to even do the job, I can lie and cheat my way to the top, and invariably they do. This documentary I Am Fishhead actually, for the very first time, was given access to top up-and-comers in Wall Street. Now, psychopaths have roughly between 1 and 4% of the population, depending on which source that you say. So it's either 1 in 100 or 1 out of 25. And what they found was that when they gave these up-and-comers on Wall Street the psychopath test, I think there's like 20 questions, right? And if you answer them incorrectly, red flag for psychopath. Now, the average psychopath will probably be relatively benign. They're not overly dangerous. They'll be on the 10-point score level or something like that. Now, they found that when they studied these up-and-comers on Wall Street, they had actually a similar reaction to the general population percentage of psychopaths, so there'd only be 1 to 4% of these up-and-comers who were psychos. What they found was that's different and actually complicates the situation is that they had more results with very, very high scores. And it's because of that tendency to crave power and control that actually gets them into those positions of power and control more than other people. And the worse a psychopath you are, the more likely you are to get into those positions.
Well, then it's no surprise that we live in a society where we're having so many issues with the whole male and women problems we're having because our values, we value psychopathic behaviour. Psychopaths, if they're a smart psychopath, actually get ahead. That's the world we're living in. That's it. And the scenario you used earlier about, if we're in that going for a job and you did that to me, unfortunately I've been in that position a number of times, and I saw you came up with a term called employer phobia. Vinny, I actually have the same condition because of those scenarios that happened to me. I can work with people, like you so succinctly said. I cannot work for people. I can work with them, but not for them.
It's because when you're working with people, there is no power structure. And this is the way I'm training up Paul Carruthers and Ben Vidgen to be radio show hosts in New Zealand. I'm producing them and doing their own shows on the proviso that they will learn from me how to do everything that I can do so that they won't need me to produce them anymore and they won't actually need anybody else, that they will have their independence. Now, this because I'm concerned that many of the psychopathic elements and personality traits are actually shared by me because I'm a narcissist. I love the sound of my own voice and that kind of thing. Every psychopath is a narcissist, but not every narcissist is a psychopath. It's what you call the difference between a malignant tumour and a benign tumour. The benign tumour doesn't grow and it's not any danger to the body, it's just kind of there. That's the kind of narcissist I am, a benign narcissist. And I'm very similar to other benign narcissists like, Bruce Lee and Muhammad Ali, who were so egotistical, like, I'm the greatest, I'm the best, blah, blah, blah. And the fact of the matter is, their egotism was perfectly justified, because they were the best. Yeah. That's what you call a benign narcissist. However, there are malignant narcissists who are very, very bad people, and I know them, and it's kind of like, when you recognize parts of yourself in other people who you despise, it kind of rings a really, really loud bell in your head. And it's not just, I want to get the hell away from this person and never associate with them again, but it also triggers, in me anyway, a severe bouts of self-analysis of my own behavior, because I do know that I can be corrupted just like any other human being. We've been given, allegedly choice by God. And I fear that one day I may be put into a position with a psychopath who will infect me and I will become the very evil that I fight against. And it's a very, very real concern for me because I already have a lot of the character elements that are actually possessed by psychopaths. For example, charm. All right, that's what they do. They charm you and they manipulate you, and they perceive your thoughts and your abilities before even you do. And I've got that same ability. When Ben Vigil was over at my house, he stayed here for. I let him stay here for like about 3 days while he was travelling the country because he didn't have any money coming into his account. He couldn't catch a bus to go to his next destination. So I had him here for 3 days. And when we were here, we were having fun. We were having a beer, having a ciggy, and watching movies, and so on and so forth. I was just basically trying to give him a long weekend off because I sensed, and I was correct, as I usually am when I sense these things about people, that he'd actually travelled quite a bit, and he needs a bit of a chance to sit back, recharge the batteries, and not do any work for a couple of days. And on the last day that he left, he said, Vinny, you're probably the best host that I've ever had, because whenever I felt like a ciggy or felt like watching a movie or felt like having a beer or felt like having a meal or something like that, just as I was about to say something, you'd say, hey, Ben, do you want a ciggy? Hey, Ben, do you want a beer? Hey, Ben, do you want breakfast? That kind of thing.
I've got that quality about me. I've got the charm going on. I've got that being able to anticipate people's needs, etc. I just don't have the ability to use it for evil. Otherwise, I'd have a lot more than I do now. And
it's not that you don't have the ability; it's that you have a choice and you choose not to.
Yeah, I absolutely choose not to, because I'm the youngest of 9 children. I've got 7 sisters and a brother, and I saw some of them behave like that, and I didn't want to be bitten by that poison that ran in my family. So I had those qualities. I had those amazing Rodriguez qualities of charm, humour, but I tell you what, they had another face, and that's how they would get people in, through their charm and humour, and I didn't want to be poisoned by that. But yeah, I do have that, and I take care of myself. I take care of the way I look. I'm not obsessed with it. But I use my powers for good. I can honestly say that.
See, I also try to use my powers for good, but also I've set up a lot of blockades purposely with my social contacts to ensure that if I did turn bad, I would be basically destroyed before I could do too much damage. The truth movement is very dear to me, because I think that without a credible alternative media, there is nothing to stop the scumbaggery, psychopathic control freaks at the very, very, very top from shaping society in a way that they want and subjugating all my brothers and sisters of the human race under their rule forever until the end of time.
So do you have a metaphoric suicide pill, Vinny?
I do. All my closest friends in New Zealand and in my personal life are very, very good people, are very, very honest people, so that if I do something bad or even slightly questionable, they usually pull me up on it, so I'm capable of regressing and redressing whatever I have done. And on second point, the people who are my colleagues in the truth movement worldwide and obviously here in New Zealand are some of the best scumbaggery exposers and the most suspicious people you will ever meet. So how much damage could I do if all the people who know me, know my weaknesses, and analyze my behavior on a critiquing basis, and also have the ability to expose scumbaggery like nobody's business? How much damage could I do if I turned onto the dark side before they all turned on me and destroyed my credibility and took my audience away from me? And I'm hoping that it won't be long. And that's the kind of safety measure that I've put into my life and my social circles, and I've done so deliberately because I think that sometimes when you're opposing a great threat to humanity, the one thing that we all forget is sometimes we become a threat to humanity too.
Thanks for speaking your truth with me, Vinny. That is... I'm kind of speechless after what you just said. I'm thinking of a few people that should have implemented that before they got as far as they did, actually.
Well, and also because I'm saying this, and being really open and honest about it, there'll be a number of different reactions from people. Some people will go, Vinny, you must be a scumbag, and blah, 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 blah. And other people will see it for what it really is, that I'm actually having forethought and admission of my own weaknesses so that I don't do damage to them, and they appreciate that. But also sometimes it helps to trigger realizations in their own life, because who you associate with is often who you become, which is why I've chosen to associate almost exclusively with people that are smarter than me, people who are capable of doing things that I can't, like people who can play guitar really well, my friend Mikhail Pierce, and people who look after their family and their wife better than me do.
I'm a guitar teacher.
Okay. Well, that's nice. And also, having people in your life that are better at something than you means that you always have respect for them because they have those abilities that you don't. And you've always got something to learn from them.
That's a very smart way to live. I've got to say, I do exactly the same thing. And sometimes I don't look up to anybody. I have a huge amount of respect for them, unless they chip away at it somehow and they do something ridiculously stupid. And after 3 chances, I step aside and dodge that bullet. Usually they're psychopaths. But yeah, look, that just the way you shared that, there's just such profound honesty coming from you. It's almost like you did say, I'm not immune to it, but it's almost like you got protection from being bitten by that kind of virus as well. You sound like you have a lot of great people in your life protecting you, almost spiritually, really.
Well, I think you kind of have to by default, because when you're in the talk radio scene, it's kind of like I explained to you before the show that you said to me something like you feel like you know me, and I said it's actually more like a door with a peephole. The person on the other side of the door can't see anything. They can't see if there's even anybody behind the door looking through the peephole at them. And that's kind of what fame is, or recognition on a mass scale through mass media that I'm engaged in is like. People can come at me and they'll know lots about me by what I've said on radio, what I've done on videos, etc. And they come up
and put yourself out there.
Well, that's true, but
and out there for judgment too.
But my concern is that they'll come up to me and assume that I'm familiar with them, or that I will care about them and their life and their struggle, and that I will devote as much time to them as they're willing to devote to watching my show, watching my videos and things of that nature. Now, if I had to, for example, know the life story and do a 2-hour interview with every single one of my listeners, do you think I'd actually ever be able to interview any guests? No. It's just not fair. And that's the monster that is fame and recognition through media, is that it will turn you into sort of like what surgeons turn into. Surgeons, by the way, being one of the top professions for psychopaths, incidentally, is that they have to develop almost like a disconnect between the emotional involvement of their patients, because they know that invariably they're going to die or have a lot of suffering in their life and things like that. And I spoke to a private prosecutor, Graham McCready, who was the first person in New Zealand history to privately prosecute a corrupt politician and actually get a conviction. And he'd been advocating for people for 30, 40 odd years. And I asked him, because as a radio show host, I try to put emotional investment into the interviews that I'm doing, and he told me that what he does in order to lessen that emotional reaction on himself, and because people's emotions damage you if they're strong enough and if you are willing to let it in. He says that I treat them like clients. All right? I'm not your friend. I'm here to do a job. And he keeps that distance for a very specific reason, because if he doesn't, he won't be able to continue to do his job, because he'll be too weighed down by people's emotional baggage. And since doing that interview with him, I've actually changed how I look at things and how I do things. I haven't become heartless, because I'm still trying to help people. I'm still doing the exact same thing that I always did, is interviewing people and making sure that they have their stories heard, and being emotionally invested at the time. But after the interview is over, just bear in mind, you're not my friend. I have only, actually, in terms of like friends, just friends, and there's no actual work involvement. I've only got two. All right, that's my friend Jono and my friend Mikhail. And other than that, it seems to be mostly a client-based relationship. And I try to help people in their time of need, like Paul Carruthers, who I'm producing now onto radio. He had been severely traumatized by his experience standing up for the elderly finance company owner, Alan Hubbard, who was sabotaged, demonized, attacked, and had all his company taken into statutory management by corrupt politicians. And the thing that was really difficult for Paul is that he was, it actually took an emotional toll on him, seeing an elderly man be treated so horrifically. And so I took it upon myself to make sure to get Paul onto my radio show, not just once or twice, but like 3, 4, 5, 6 times, to tell his story about his dealings with Alan Hubbard. Now, had I not done that, and Paul said this to me the other day, he doesn't know how he would have actually been able to deal with it. And the same with another man called Russell Malcolm, who had a massive exposure of corruption in the Rodney District Council. It's just north of Auckland, where I live, where I think 5-10 years ago, he got the entire council fired for corruption, including the mayor. And he was starting to go into it again because he realised that they were trying to pull the same old dirty tricks. But this time, they took his home, they arrested him, threw him in the cells, and the Prime Minister himself, John Key, who was a former Federal Reserve banker, dictated his bail conditions over the phone, including not being able to post on the internet. And this is at the height of election season, mind you, and not be able to contact any member of Parliament. Right? Now, Russell used to be the entertainer. Okay, he's an amazing dancer. You know, those when you've got a man and a woman dancing around, and they do all these amazing moves, and the cha-cha and the mambo and all of that kind of stuff. And you see, it takes a lot of skill, and it's actually quite an amazing. It's like a symphony for your eyes just to watch these people move around in unison. He can't do that anymore. He can't even look at documents or paperwork anymore. He can't open envelopes because of how severely they traumatized him. So I got him to come into my house one night, and we had a box of beer, and I got him to sit down in front of a camera and read out the 56-page document that he wrote about what these people did to him and why. All the evidence, absolutely everything laid out. Took hours and hours and hours. And I then spent 3 nights in a row, I think with bedtimes of like 4 a.m., 5 a.m. and 7 a.m., editing this and then putting it up online. And the exact same thing that I did for Paul Carruthers, I did for him. I changed his life. I changed the direction in it. Because in a time when nobody cares, or it seems like nobody cares, or it seems like nobody's willing to go through the extra effort to help you to tell your story, if only one person does, it can change everything. And I saw that this man was hurting. I saw death in his future, and I had the power to change it. Even though I had to sacrifice 4 nights and didn't get any money out of it, it was the right thing to do, and I had to do it. Because, like they say in Team America World Police, like it or not, I was the one with the power to. And this is the basis of all of the responsibility that I take when it comes to this work, is that people don't have the skills that I have. People don't have the drive or the intelligence or the eloquence that I have, and that does not make me better than them. It does not make me a parasite. I think it makes me a guardian. I think it makes me a leader, one who takes responsibility, one who actually helps when others can be helped. And I pray that I never shirk that responsibility, because it's a great burden, and sometimes it's very hard for me to do, but it's necessary. And I think without pain and suffering, you don't really know whether or not you're doing the right thing. So if I'm still feeling pain, if I'm still feeling suffering as a result of what I'm doing, it means that I'm on the right track and I'm helping.
I think guardian is a word I would definitely attach to you. That's what I'm sensing. Guardian. I'm a guardian of sorts as well.
What is it that you're a guardian over? Right now you're a mother, and you have to be a guardian of your child. You know,
she's my ultimate, the ultimate thing that I'm protecting. But I have an ability to see things before they happen. I have ability, like you described before, where you could be talking to someone and you kind of get a feel of their likes and dislikes and all that without them telling you. And I just get a really strong sense of people. I don't know, it's because I know myself very well, so I just think, well, we're all very similar. I'm not really sure what it is, and I can't really describe my guardianship, but I had, 2 years of experience on live radio, on American radio of all things. I was the only Australian female voice on there, host. There is another lady now that I actually got her a show on Revolution Radio. But how I guard, if I see, I know how to swoop in without looking like I'm swooping in. I don't want to give too many of my secrets away, but I can prevent something from happening before it happens and gets really bad. Let me just say that, without anyone really noticing.
Okay, fair enough. And what was a great saying I heard? I've been saying this on every single show that I've been on since I heard it, in fact, because it's so damn good. Nobody can do everything, but everybody can do something.
Hell yeah. You're a little bit like a superhero. Now, I feel like I've got a little bit of that in me, and I hope you don't mind me using that term. But what are some of your skills? You just explained a few. How would you describe some of your superhero skills, if you don't mind me asking, Vinny?
If you were to take every form of entertainment that currently exists, I'm basically skilled in it. So, video's a form of entertainment. I can make videos like nobody's business. Audio, songs, talk radio, forms of entertainment, very good at it. Stand-up comedy, megaphone comedy, public speaking. I'm writing scripts, books, both fiction and non-fiction. Just in general, if you can think of a form of entertainment, I can do it. And that's actually my goal in life, is to produce one thing, at least one thing, of high quality in every single sphere of entertainment. And that's what I am. That's what I naturally am, an entertainer. And that's why I've brought such a different flavour to the truth movement, because everybody else is basically out there to tell the truth, and whether they're entertaining or not, it's of no never mind to them. For me, it's mostly about entertainment, and the truth has to be ingrained in it. If the truth isn't entertaining, in my opinion, less people will be likely to want to listen to it. Okay?
That is true.
If something's absorbing, if something's well put together, if something's funny, if something's remarkable, then people will listen.
Yeah, I'd rather watch a dancing frog than a potato sitting there talking about the truth about something. And that's me. I'd rather watch a singing frog.
See, and this basically goes to illustrating the manipulative aspect of my personality. Is I want to be able to use my skills as an entertainer to actually do some good for people by delivering something of value rather than attempting to distract you from such.
I think someone with very little skill called you a manipulator, and now you're defending it, because I've got the same thing. I met my husband because I was actually on stage with my guitar doing a solo act, and I met my husband that way. And I actually thought, this would be a great way to be out and not meet someone online, and perhaps meet my soulmate, and it's exactly what I did. So I've got the similar skills to yourself. You might be on a different level to me, but I'm a producer, a singer-songwriter, singing teacher. I haven't done stand-up comedy, but I'm close, but I haven't. So I've got these multi-dimensional skills that I've honed and I've worked on for many years. And at the end of the day, I'm like, why am I doing this? Am I manipulative? But you know what it comes down to? It's like, well, we spend half our lives being entertained. I'd rather do the work myself than kind of just be entertained by other people's work. I thought I better contribute somehow. And that's not that I think of that consciously, but I think it's part of my motivation.
Well, let's define what manipulation is. One can manipulate a person into hating their best friend and break up a relationship. Another can manipulate a pen to write an incredible work that will actually change humanity. Mm-hmm. Okay, there's the difference. Manipulation is kind of like, depends what you're using it for.
And
so myself, for example, one example I'd like to use is Evelyn Gilbert from Aotearoa, A Wider Perspective. I think I was away from my show for a week, and I got a bunch of different radio show hosts to take over the hosting responsibilities, and I organised guests for them to interview. One of the hosts did, in my opinion, probably a terrible job. And he really offended Evelyn, and she hung up in the middle of the broadcast. Professionalism aside, I mean, if you listen to that broadcast, it's like, bro, no wonder she hung up. And she was upset with me because I put her in that situation. Now, I knew that I needed to have a conversation with her, and I knew that she liked cats. So what I did is I grabbed the cat, and then I had him in my hands when I started the video call, so that the very first thing she sees is this very, very cute fluffy kitty in my hands trying to wriggle to get away, to make her laugh and make her actually more prepared to listen to the conversation. I was actively trying to manipulate her so that I could maintain our friendship and help her deal with it, because I was actually on her side the whole time. But I know that sometimes you need to actually basically BS people just a tiny little bit in order to get them to open up, so that you can actually relieve the BS that caused the situation in the first place. You see what I'm saying? Of
course, at least you have, you call it manipulation in a way, it is for sure, but you respected her psychology. You obviously paid attention to understand that, well, she likes cats, and yet you used it as a prop, but it was for good intentions. I think we need more manipulators if that's the case, and if that's the way people are going to use it.
And again, it's all in how you use it. And of course, because I have those abilities, again, this goes back to how I've set up these blockades and my relationships with other people, so that if I do start using my abilities for ill instead of good, I will be destroyed, basically.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, you know what? We've got, 15, 20 minutes left, and we've covered quite a few topics, but we were talking about this sexism, feminism issue. I'm going to ask you, what do you think women's role in alternative media is, and if we have a role? Because it is very male-dominated, and I'm totally cool with that.
So what's the question?
Do you think women belong in, what do you think their role is in alternative media? Do we belong in alternative media?
Well, sure. I mean, what kind of a statement would it be? No, women don't belong in alternative media. I mean, and again, it's about partnership. Men tend to dominate talk radio because, and women are sort of like along the sidelines in betweens of that. But there are many women in alternative media who I respect greatly. And I'll be honest, coming into this awakening experience, I was a misogynist. But after interviewing and being alongside in activism, many great women, I have basically taken my misogyny, put a gun to its head and gone kapow, you know.
I think what's so privileging about being in positions that we're in is we become the ultimate spies from the stage, from the radio. We do become the ultimate spies, and it makes it a lot easier. I won't speak for you, but it makes it a lot easier for me to see things from different perspectives and trajectories, because all the different kinds of minds that I have the privilege of engaging with. So I learn so much, and I learned that. Well, I've definitely learned that there's no black and white. There's definitely a lot of grey. But what happens with me, I want to actually sort of segue back into this, but your employer phobia situation. My situation with the whole employer phobia was, I know you're not going to like it when I say this, Vinny, but it was sexual harassment. And that was usually always the main reasons why I'd have to leave. Because it was always some guy above me wanted sexual relations with me. That's what it came down to. And if I wasn't interested, it's funny, you can't win. If you're into it, then you're a slut. If you're not interested, you kind of get in trouble as well. So, I realized I was kind of coming across those obstacles when I was in an employment kind of situation, that there'd be advancements made at me. And I'm thinking, I can sort of see why women wear the caftan. Maybe I should wear a caftan to work. I'd be all right. So I even get the whole caftan situation and why women wear them.
Well, I don't think women can be blamed for men treating them with disrespect, in my opinion. All right? If you're the abuser, if you're the disrespecter, you can't blame the victim. You can't blame the person who's being abused or victimized. It's just kind of like everybody has to take personal responsibility for their own actions. And as soon as they try to put the blame on somebody else for something that they've done, that's kind of, again, a red flag for a psycho to me. And that happened on our network as well. One of our female hosts was stalked and approached repeatedly. Even while he was in a relationship with the woman he was doing a show with, he was still trying to go after one of the other hosts. It was absolutely.
Hold on, are you talking about me? Because that was my story.
No. This is on the network that I used to be on, American Freedom Radio.
Okay.
And it was quite funny because I came out against that guy on a radio show, and I also exposed another psychopath as well. And this woman who I came out of in defence for, and I was drawing heat from doing it, because I exposed this different psycho. She started saying that I was the psycho, and that I never supported her, and I showed her no. Here's the show where I gave that psycho who was stalking you grief. Here's the show where you came on my show for 2 hours to talk about your kids that were kidnapped, and here's the show. I actually provided her the evidence that what she was saying that I was and what I was doing wasn't true, and so she blocked me, and good riddance, because sometimes.
Okay, continue. I want to make this point, but go ahead. Sorry to interrupt.
No, go make your point.
Well, you just mentioned that this woman, her children were kidnapped. Was this woman very much vibing with a victim consciousness or not?
I don't know.
Okay. I hope you didn't forget your thoughts, so go ahead.
Well, anyway, she, in my opinion, she was a very awful radio show host. Her voice and her laugh and her personality and the way she analysed things and everything, it made me want to stab myself in the head with a screwdriver every time I heard her voice. Okay?
Been there, done that too.
And I still wanted to defend her because she wasn't a bad person. Mm-hmm. Even though she treated me badly, I still won't speak out in public or name names or anything like that. And it seems really, I feel kind of incensed and like it's really unfair how she treated me when I tried to treat her so well. But you know, that's life. But I spoke to the network owner, and it was kind of like she was on the network and her show was like kind of tanking, and it was terrible. But she was one of the only few female voices that we had on the network, because women don't generally do talk radio in the main. It's kind of a male-dominated field. And he said, no, I'm keeping her on because she's female. Just because she's female. Not because she's talented, not because she's got the ratings, not because she's good at her job. Because she's female. And I think in a meritocracy, this is a democracy based on merit. The person who gets the position is the person who has earned it. And I think that many women deserve a place in talk radio because they're so brilliant at what they do. They've got the drive, they've got the passion, they've got the research, and they have the compassion, basically, that is necessary in order to interview guests without going offside with them and going on the attack like a lot of male radio show hosts do. And that's absolutely crucial to the movement in order to counterbalance this testosterone action-driven thing, because we're not just talking about a world that is being destroyed because people act without thinking. We're also looking at a world that is having its mind collectively destroyed because there isn't enough thinking. And in some cases, women are a lot better at it than men, and they deserve everything that's coming to them. And Danny Romero, the owner of American Freedom Radio, said everybody ends up where they deserve to be.
Mm-hmm. No, that is very true. I'm proud of the fact that I do have a little bit of a broadcasting background, but I'm proud of the fact that Nighthawk, who's the station owner of Revolution Radio, actually found me. I do pride myself on people coming to me. I don't like chasing things. If it's meant to, I just leave myself open to whatever is going to happen. Kind of hard to explain, but he found me. I must have left a comment on a video. I didn't even know what Revolution Radio was. And he sent me a message because I've got a whole bunch of my videos on there. You know, I'm a musician. I post some of my music up, etc. And he must spot me and he offered me a show. You want a show? And that was it. And I'm like, yeah, why not? What do I need? Skype and microphone and headphones. And that was it. And it was from there. And I took my responsibility very, very seriously. I kind of knew what I was up against. I did get a lot of respect and I did earn my stripes. However, all it takes is a couple of psychopaths to not like you or not like the position that you've attained and can simply start a rumor about you. In fact, this is the first time I've ever said this publicly, and I hope you don't mind me mentioning it while you're on the show with me, Vinny, but rumors started about me, and I know exactly who started these rumours actually, because I've got my spies and people that have my back, that I'm a practitioner of black magic. And I'd like to say to those people that started those insidious rumours about me that because I have skill, I'm better looking, younger, funnier, and better at what I do than you doesn't mean I practice black magic. And that's all I've got to say about that. But that's all it took for my reputation to start being picked at. But I always turn whatever happens to me, I always turn everything into a positive. I always have a way of turning everything around. And those people will be exposed eventually because they are actually the practitioners of black magic. They've spoken about it. They've hinted at it. They talk about affecting people in the astral world. To me, that's kind of black magic. And it's the very people that were starting these rumors about me. And I don't even astral travel. I don't even really know what astral traveling is. I've got a fair idea of what it is. But the way you could just start a rumor about somebody, it's so cruel. And it's not even true. And this is the game. This is how it works. You know, you talk, Vinny, about not being, you still could be susceptible to corruption and all those things. The truth is we're all part of this game. We all have our own narrative. We're all part of the game, except we're here. This is the 3D Earth experience. This holographic experience we're all having, and that's okay. I get all that now, and I am the co-creator of my reality, so I can kind of manipulate things and use my illusion how I see fit. When Axl Rose says use your illusion, he knew exactly what he was talking about. And I say be creative, be fun. Be funny, make others laugh, have joy, be silly, love. Just look after yourself mainly. Take care of your body, take care of your mind, take care of your soul, your spirit. Take care of those people around you. And once you start doing that, people are doing it for you. I tell you, those issues of feminism and what people are doing to each other, it all starts to melt away. The only time I will help people, and I will certainly help people, it really resonated with me, what you were talking about, Vinny, is if for some reason they're in my field of vision or they come to me, and sometimes they do come to me, and if I can do something, I will do it.
Well, I think it's something Mark Passio said is two words that I think go together like cheese and crackers, mate. Moral obligation. Mm-hmm. Some very powerful stuff there. Just those two words. What do you have a moral obligation to do? You have a moral obligation to think for yourself. You have a moral obligation to expose scumbaggery. And you have a moral obligation to protect the innocent from scumbaggery.
Mm-hmm. But do you think it's just a natural thing in you? You don't have to think twice. This is just natural in you, is it not, Vinny?
I don't know. I think it's actually been learned through my traumas, being busted for cannabis when I was 19, having the cops lie to the judge, and having my girlfriend leave me and my flatmates steal everything out of my house, and being bullied at school my whole life, including by the teachers. And whenever I defended myself, I would always be the one to get in trouble, and whoever attacked me would lie and say that I attacked first, and they would get off scot-free and I would be in trouble, because I always admitted when I was wrong. So I think it's been a learned behaviour that I don't like injustice, particularly when it happens to me, and I like freedom, particularly when I've got it. It's just that the realisation hit me, I'm not free unless all of us are free. I don't have real justice unless all of us do.
Well, when I said to you earlier before the interview started, I feel like I know you. Well, not really. The thing that I connected with you when I do hear you around the traps, Vinny, is your humour. That to me is what stands out with you, because I don't follow anyone. I'm going to be really honest with you. I don't look up to anyone. I don't follow anybody. No one's my hero, nothing like that. That's all gone. I used to have those little idiosyncrasies, but I don't have them anymore. But something that really stands out with me for you is your humour, and how you have managed to be in this game, in this world, and still managed to have a great humour about stuff. How do you do that?
Well, basically, you don't really have much of a choice. When you're in dark situations and there is no light at the end of the tunnel and everything seems to be going wrong, the only thing we have left in order to ease the tension is to make a few jokes about it. I consider it a survival mechanism, basically. I mean, sure, we're being exterminated and enslaved by a bunch of ruthless criminal sociopathic scumbaggery, but it doesn't mean we can't have a laugh about it. Otherwise, what's the point in being killed?
Yeah, that's a good point. I'm kind of the vein of like the Titanic, when the Titanic was sinking and the band was still playing. I'm in the band.
See, and one of my central beliefs is that we're going to lose, right? And I have that belief deliberately because every moment that I have a success or a victory, it goes contrary to my general belief, and in so doing, it makes me really positive. Whereas other truthers do it the other way. They say, I'm going to go out there, I'm going to change the world, I'm going to do this, that, and the other, I'm going to convince a bazillion people that 9/11 was an inside job. And then when they don't, they get so depressed and so angry that they stop bothering to try. That's not me, son. Not me.
Yeah. Yeah. There's, I think you gotta, it takes an element of intellect. I read this saying the other day. It was brilliant. I got a lot of response from it. It was something like, when you're dead, you don't know you're dead. Only your loved ones know that you're dead, and they're hurting. Only they know you're dead. You don't know you're dead. It's the same when you're dealing with stupid people. They don't know they're stupid.
Yeah, I've seen that one too, but again, the guardian mentality in me thinks about old school slavery. Like when they're on the plantations and stuff. In many cases, the plantation owners banned reading and writing. And one thing that truthers have a tendency to do, which I inherently disagree with, is to look down on the unawakened and call them sheep, and so on and so forth. In that old slavery plantation where reading and writing was banned, could you blame the slaves for being illiterate? No.
Well, yeah, I do see that point of view. Like the way we're being dumbed down and the way we're being socially engineered, it's no wonder that we live in a culture and a society where people, aren't too bright and they're not really questioning and they're not using discernment. Yeah, I get all that. But, Vinny, with the age of technology we live in, we can literally ask any question we want, literally any question we want and get an answer. If people aren't using that and they're just being, blinded by the glitter, the Hollywood glitter, and they're not choosing to say, hey, I've got a question, I'm going to go ask. Just literally put the question in Google and use discernment to see if you find it.
So can I ask you, when you were born and you had zero experience, did it occur to you to start questioning whether or not there's something behind the Federal Reserve? No? Because you didn't have any knowledge. Nobody brought it. Nobody brought it to you. Okay?
That's right. I don't know what I don't know as well.
The obligation.
I don't know what I don't know.
The obligation that we're trying to put off of ourselves and onto others, I think, is inherently irresponsible. Because if there's somebody who's sitting there and they need help, and you say, ha ha ha, you stupid bastard, you could have had help all along if only you'd asked for it, as opposed to, why don't you just go up and freaking offer some, And that's the difference between me and everybody else. Everybody else calls the people sheeple, and I don't want to do that. I think it's disrespectful, and I think it's a dishonour because they're in a rigged game, just like we all are, and unfortunately they haven't had the exact same experiences, the exact same knowledge, and the exact same people that have come along in their life at the exact right time that told you that little piece of information that irked your curiosity and helps you to get out there and go do it. Now, that's why I have the responsibility to go out and tell people what's going on, regardless of whether or not they want to hear it, regardless of whether or not they hate me for doing it, because it is the right thing to do. And that's why I don't call people sheeple, because it's disrespectful. I just prefer to call them slave scum.
Slave scum. Yeah, sheeple has just become too sheeple for me.
And in fact, it's being used to demonise the truth movement now. Sorry, I'm not 100% sure if it's being used to demonise the truth, but I saw this White House Down movie, and they had recruited terrorists from the White House watch list in order to get all these people together to attack the White House, right? And as they were moving the hostages, one of the terrorists goes, "Come on, sheeple, move it!" And I was just thinking, man, it's like we are becoming the very thing that we hate. We're becoming anti-human. Mm-hmm. We're putting all the responsibility onto other people rather than taking personal responsibility for our own actions.
Right on.
And that's why I don't tell people what to do with their lives. And when people come up to me and they ask me, "Oh, Vinny, what am I supposed to do? There's this, that, and the other." I was just like, well, bro, that's what you're here to find out, okay? You think you've spent your entire life doing what people have told you, and the solution to that is asking somebody else to tell you what to do with your life? No! You got to figure it out.
I've got a question for you.
Go for your life.
What am I supposed to do?
Well, first question you've got to ask yourself is, in how many ways is the New World Order currently trying to screw you?
Oh dear. Well, one through feminism. We can go there.
let's just say, let's just carte blanche it in every single way.
Yeah, but they can't touch me now because I'm onto it, and I use my own illusion.
If you say so. If you say so.
Oh, no, Vinny, let me get this straight. I do realise, I'm just in a bigger cage. It's not a small one anymore. It's just a bigger one. I do get that. Oh, absolutely, I do. But if I was to wallow on it every day, I'd be a very depressed person. So I try to decorate the cage and put flowers in it and sing like a dancing frog. You know what I mean?
Yeah, see, me, I like to take a nail file to one little bar of the cage at a time. Every single day. And slowly wear it down. And know that every single day I'm making progress.
I got someone working on that.
All right, so
I'm the entertainment in the cage while they got the nail files.
Yeah. Well, the answer to the question is the New World Order is screwing you in every single way and every single day. So how do you resist it? You, personally, any way you want to. It's just a question of finding out exactly what your skills and talents are and how they can be used in concert, maybe with others, or maybe even just by yourself if necessary, just to mess with them a little bit every day.
Precisely.
Did you cause all the world's problems by yourself? No? Then you don't have to solve them all by yourself either. The statistic of 7 people having to come up and say something to you before you'll abandon a previously held belief is very true. What that said to me is that if you see a woman sitting there with her baby and her baby's head is right next to an iPad or a cell phone or something like that, and it's irradiating that little baby's brain, you have to get off your ass, even if you're in the middle of your latte in mid-sip, and go over there and say something to her. Hey, do you know the EMF and EMR wireless radiation signals that are coming off of the Bluetooth of that iPad are irradiating your baby's brain and can cause brain damage? You might be the first person to say that to her, and she'll say, "Bugger off, F you," or something like that, and you go, "Okay."
Yeah.
All you got to do.
My house is full of Wi-Fi.
You got to start turning that stuff off, honey. I
mean, turn it off at night time. Just turn it all off at night time.
No, I mean, you've got to find wired solutions. Like I had Paul Waddell from safespace.co.nz come over here and test all my environments for free because I made a couple of videos for him, and we share a mutual friend, John Eisen from Uncensored Magazine and the New Zealand Journal of Natural Medicine. And he came in here and he tested my space, and my iMac had Bluetooth. I was using a wireless keyboard, wireless mouse. There was Wi-Fi coming out of the thing, and that was it. That's all there was. It was only like 3 or 4 sources of wireless radiation in my room, other than the power cords and things like that near my feet and around me. And he was getting a reading of 15,000 microwatts. And when you're taking readings like that, it's not just 15,000 microwatts, like everything added together. It's 15,000 microwatts per device, and you get it all.
Yeah,
right? And so we turned the Bluetooth off of my computer, we turned the wireless off of the wireless router, and I use a wired keyboard and a wired mouse, and he put 2 filters on the lines in my room, in my office, and I'm now down to 2 microwatts.
Oh, gee, okay, that's a big jump. Vinny, we're at the end of the show. Thanks so much for joining me. It's been just a great conversation. It's just been easy.
Well, we're all bathing in pollution and scumbaggery, and don't worry about it, because stress causes illness. Sometimes even more illness than the thing that you're worried about.
Well, rather than worry about it, do something about it. That's the way I live. I'm not going to worry about it. I'm going to do something about it. I usually do something about it. So I will see you next week here on Wolf Spirit Radio.
Plug my website and stuff before
I go ahead. Of course, Vinny, of course. Please do.
So if you go to my website, thevinnyeastwoodshow.com, that's Vinny with a Y because it's the most important question, and Eastwood as in go ahead. make my news, and go ahead. Start listening to the broadcast and hear a little bit of the lighter side of genocide. And because I'm employer-phobic, I don't like to have people telling me what to do. So instead of having overly large quantities of sponsors and whatnot that I have to keep happy by not mentioning certain things on radio and blah, 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 I have complete autonomy, and that is granted to me by you, the listening audience, who go to my website and donate either through PayPal or the Kiwi Bank, and you can either donate once off or start up an automatic payment of as little as $1 a month, and some people actually do $100 a month, just so I can pay my bills, keep a roof over my head, keep the internet going, and keep exposing scumbaggery for the betterment of humanity. Thank you.
Wonderful, Vinny. Thank you so much. And I'm sorry, it was very unprofessional of me not to ask you earlier. I suppose I took for granted just thinking most people know who you are, but I should have asked you to pass off your contact details and your website, but we've done that. It's been an honour to have you on. I hope you were comfortable. If I had a cat and you loved cats, I would have shown it to you via Skype. Okay? That's what I do. I like to make people feel comfortable, and
like a manipulative woman should.
Absolutely. I like to use my southern charm.
Oh, yeah.
All right, Vinny. Thanks so much. Maybe we could do this again, huh?
Sure.
Okay.